was standing there and everything sounded muffled, like everyone was far off in the distance. I remember that vividly. We went out to have this fight, and it escalated where I ended up taking his life. Looking down at my friend, it was like, what just happened? I mean, what kind of person kills their friend? Hutch was the bottom of the barrel. If you get in trouble anywhere else, that's where they would send you. Very first day in prison, we had a riot in the chow hall. And I can remember I was so scared, but I was fighting for my life. I seen guys laying on the floor. There was puddles of blood. There was one guy laying there with his teeth all busted out of his face. I came to a quick realization, like, this is for real. I'm gonna die here. This is it. I'm gonna die. And that one, there was no hope. That was probably the hardest part.
I had never been in a prison before. And so when we walked in there and the doors clanged shut, I thought, it's a great idea, but there's no way this is going to work. It was a huge challenge. I guess maybe we were desperate. We have a company called Electrics. We build electrical assemblies. And we have another company called the Seat King. We build industrial seating.
For the inmates, it was a huge thing because they were paying hourly wages now. Before, we were only making 60 cents a day.
We will only hire the best of the best, as it were. So it's a real incentive for the inmates to be good in prison because they can now go and work in a job that pays them $80 or $100 a day instead of 50 cents a day.
I used to hate phone calls because I think at that time, just to accept the call was a $2 charge. And then it was $1.29 every minute.
If you're making 50 cents a day, you don't spend much time talking to your family. But it's so important because the relationship with their families is probably one of the key things that reduces recidivism.
The second chance started when I got my job at Seat King. People started believing in me. People started seeing a different attitude. That was where the seeds were planted. That's where the second chance started.
These are murderers and rapists and drug dealers. But as I really got to know them and really became friends with them, I came to understand while they had done very bad things, they were still created by the creator of the universe. And when I understood the little that I did to see a movement in them, it really gave me hope for what a business could do and what the rest of us need to do, particularly those of us who are in influential positions and can do something about it, what we should really do. And so it gave me a whole new vision as to how and why business should be done.
Pete's been a very good man in my life. Not too many people have had that kind of father figure in their lives.
With Pete himself, that's an amazing man. When they come out here, they shake your hand, they know you by name, they know who you are.
You know, being able to come out here every day and not be treated like an actual inmate, but to be treated like an employee.
Our philosophy of business is this. The main thing we need to do is we want to lead with economic capital. We want to give them a good job. The second thing we want to do is we want to respect them as individuals. We want to have deep, authentic relationships with them. And then the third thing, we let the Lord figure out how to open those doors of spiritual capital, and that typically happens.
So parole time came. Well, Pete was out of the country. He literally flew from out of the country to this country to go speak for me and fight for me. If that's not a friendship or if that's not love, I don't know what is, man.
Louis is a phenomenal artist, and so I think Louis has been out maybe a year and a half now. For the first year, he became a tattoo artist, and he wanted to open his own tattoo shop. So I helped Louis figure out a business plan, and about 3 months ago, he opened his own tattoo shop.
Well, it's my second chance. I wasn't supposed to get this. I was supposed to die in there. I was never supposed to be out here. And to be able to do what I'm doing now, that's redemption. Pete and Seat King, they taught us all these things that we're doing out here too.
They brought a hope to a dark place.
It's afforded me an opportunity to help pay for my daughter's college. As a father figure that's in my daughter's life, but not every day because I'm in prison, I'm still able to help my daughter succeed at what she wants to do by helping her pay for college. So it's been a very good blessing that I'm able to do that.
It's an unbelievable thing to see a man that has no hope come to hope. You know, I think in business we become hardened to the bottom line. And I think business is really about people. And I think we should be in business to really transform society. When we started to really love those guys as we loved ourselves, and we saw transformation happen, it really gave me a whole new vision for what I could do as a business person. And it's been terrific.
Pete, that was a great story, the impact that you and the team have made. I want to talk a little bit more about that innovative mindset because it didn't stop with SeatKing. Recently, amidst COVID-19, you and the team have innovated more. Tell us a little bit about that.
Henry, if you remember back to the first few weeks of the pandemic, they were literally telling us that business could be shut down for a number of months. We did a quick calculation, and with no sales and current overhead, we figured we could last about 5 months. I remember thinking to myself, Solomon in Ecclesiastes is right. This is all striving after the wind. 40 years of work is going to vanish in a few months. At the same time, I remembered the first chapter in James. Consider it pure joy when you encounter trials of various kinds, knowing that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and let perseverance have its perfect result, that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men generously and without reproach. So we literally circled the troops and began to brainstorm, how are we going to solve this problem? Our first inclination was to slash and burn, lay off people, cut expenses, preserve cash at all costs. I have lived through 5 major downturns now, and the first 3 I did nothing. We made no adjustments, and it was painful. When the 2008 recession hit, we were ready. We slashed and burned, and we cut expenses, and we aggressively marketed. And while we were wounded, we recovered fairly fast. In fact, we actually picked up a fair amount of business during the 2008 downturn. So during 2019, we have felt it was a time for a major bump in the road. It was 10 years since the last bump. We became more conservative and more strategic, and I think going into this downturn, the greatest change was in our mindset. We didn't focus on what we didn't have, but we focused on what we did have. I think we moved from an ownership mindset, it's mine and how do I protect it, to a stewardship mindset that said it's God's and how do we multiply it. So when everything went south, we gathered the leadership team and we went to work. We basically asked 2 questions. What does the world need and how can we provide it? And the world needed protective medical gowns, and we had the capability with a little manufacturing and maneuvering to make that happen. Our business is called SeatKing, and normally we make industrial seating for the off-road equipment market. So we had 80 to 100 people who normally were sewing seat covers who now began sewing medical gowns. So we had the basic ingredient right in front of us, we just needed to use it. It was still a monumental decision for us to even make a pivot into a product that we'd really not made before. And the question for us was, were we chasing the shiny stuff or was this a real business deal? So we have a strategic decision matrix we use to help us make business decisions, and it is really founded around 4 critical questions. The first question is it principled? Is this a principled endeavor? Will it really honor God? Are we doing it just for the money or are we doing it for the greater good? The second, is it real? Is the market real? Is the product real? And can we really serve people? Thirdly, we ask, can we win? Can our product be competitive? Can our company be competitive? Can we do this with excellence? The fourth question is it worth it? Are we really being good stewards? Does it create economic, social, and spiritual capital is really what we're asking. So over about 8 days, we answered those questions. We did market research on what the potential customers really wanted. We prototyped several products. We set up new production lines. We nailed down our supply chains. We literally began to sell and close orders and began to make the product. As I look back on that, I think one of the resources we have that we often forget that we have is our personal relationships. And this is, I think, what really made the difference for all of us. My first call was literally to the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Mike is a Kansan and a good friend. And I also made calls to a number of you in the FDE network. And before you knew it, we had sold over 150,000 gallons worth several $1 million in revenue. It essentially could have been a disastrous year, but it turned out to be a profitable year. So Henry, I will tell you that desperate people do desperate things, and one of those things we do that is desperate is to innovate. The moral of the story for us is this. We need to embrace trials because they force us to innovate and ultimately, I think, make us better.
Okay, so that's awesome. So tell me though, what are the barriers of getting your team to switch? And did you do kind of like a Cortez burn the ships model, or is it more like parking the ships and coming back to the old business model once this comes back? And then also, while I'm asking, how would you encourage other businesses who are struggling during this time, trying to figure out what to do?
I do think team alignment is essential, particularly in rough waters. We didn't burn the ships, as it were, and whether you burn the ships or make a minor pivot is really dependent on the situation. I am probably more of a fan of minor pivots because I think it really lessens your risk. Although there are times you need to make a major overhaul. We did not exit our existing businesses, we merely added to it. So let me talk about team alignment here. I think there are really two key essential factors we have in place that really align our team and reduce our risk. Number one, you have to understand your why. You have to understand the purpose why you are in business. Secondly, you have to think strategically about your business. You have to have a strategic plan. Regarding the purpose of business, is your reason for being in business to maximize financial value or to be a catalyst for flourishing, as we call it? If your team knows your why, and your why is for a greater purpose, their resolve, their creativity, their willingness to fight greatly increases. If it's just about the money, they will be disappointed. But if it's about really making your business a place that promotes human flourishing, then it totally changes the paradigm of the team. They begin to live for something greater than themselves. And then this thing called faith kicks in and really good things start to happen. Regarding planning, the second thing, my greatest weakness in business is that I have not been strategic enough. I'm an operations driven. I believe if you build it better, faster, and cheaper, you will win. Unfortunately, if you're building the proverbial buggy whip, better, faster, cheaper, you are not going to win. As quickly as the world is changing, you have to be nimble and ready to pivot, and this takes strategic thinking. And I really think it needs to start at the macro level. What are the latest trends? What is the impact of technology? And where are we in the business cycle? Every 7 to 10 years, we know there's going to be a downturn. So prepare for it. 2 years ago, we realized we had been in one of the longest economic expansions probably over the last 50 years. And it was simply time for a correction, we thought, to take place. In fact, we passed on an acquisition we really wanted to do about 9 months ago because we thought a downturn was coming. You see, strategy will improve your timing, and timing is critical. The Dow is up 50% since March. Who of us were buying when the Dow was 18,000 in March? Not only do you need good timing, you need the willpower to take the action. My good friend Jess Carell likes to say, you should sell when the violins are playing and buy when the cannons are booming. That's why, as faith-driven entrepreneurs, we should consider it all joy when we encounter various trials, because that's when the opportunities, I believe, are the greatest. Let me make one more point on strategic planning. It's not something you do every year or maybe every 3 years. It's something I think you really need to think about quarterly. We do an annual plan, we do a 3-year plan, but every quarter we're updating it, we're reviewing it, and we're looking a year out. We're adding a quarter on, as it were. It has to be what we call real-time navigation. Things are changing so fast that you need to spend time quarterly strategically thinking about your business. That said, Proverbs tells us that man makes the plan, but God directs the steps. It's easy for most of us entrepreneurs to make a plan. What is difficult is to make sure it is truly faith-driven.